I drove there just kind of for fun to see what was going on, just to kind of say that I went, and I expected to see, maybe 20, maybe 30 people in the park. And when I showed up there, there looked to be about 1,000 people there, and there were like news agencies. And, it was definitely not what I had anticipated. And so I realized when I got there, it was a big deal. But even then, I didn't realize the magnitude. It wasn't until I won and everybody surrounded me and they picked me up and I was on, maybe one or two people's shoulders. And yeah.
What's up? Welcome back to the Chop Shop. We are here with the legend Ben Shabad, who just won the Jeremy Allen White Lookalike contest in Chicago. What is up, Ben? Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, because I always forget to do this, and Nick reminds me later, if you're enjoying this kind of content, follow, subscribe, do all that. Nick's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? But yeah, follow. It helps us out a lot on the BK's Chop Shop. But Ben Shabad, the winner of the Jeremy Allen White Lookalike contest. Okay, first of all, have you just been told your whole life you look like him? Or did you see the contest and you're like, I think I could do this?
Well, definitely not my whole life.
Well, yeah, he's only been around for like a couple years.
A little older than him.
Yeah.
But no, I started getting that when he was in Shameless, but it wasn't that often.
Okay.
Once he was in The Bear, he had longer hair. My hair was longer.
Yeah.
And people started saying that a lot more. Yeah.
And then did somebody send you the contest, or did you find it on your own?
A lot of people sent it to me.
Okay.
Maybe not a lot. Maybe between 5 and 10 people texted me, and
that's enough.
Yeah, that's enough to make me aware.
And then so you decided to go.
Yeah.
And the contest was where? It was in Grant Park?
Humboldt Park.
Humboldt Park.
Yeah.
And you and how many other lookalikes were there?
I don't remember the exact number, but it was over 50.
Really?
Over 50. Yeah.
Wow. And then how did they choose who won? It was like an applause contest, right?
Yeah.
Like a loose applause, who's loudest?
Exactly. Supposedly it was the applause, but I don't know how they were actually measuring that. There were two judges.
Yeah. I assume noise.
It has something to do with noise, right? Yeah. The people were noisy.
Did you bring a lot of people? Did you have a lot of fans there?
No, I had zero.
You had so you won on noise without even having people supporting you.
Yeah, actually, my
the people's champ.
Friends think that's one of the funniest aspects of the story is that I just went there by myself.
First of all, it's really funny, and it would be even funnier if you didn't win and you had to tell all your friends you went there by yourself and nothing happened.
That is good. I never thought about that.
So you did the contest, you won. Was it like, did it feel like a big deal when you won, or were you just kind of like, okay, I did it?
It did feel like a big deal, a much bigger deal than I thought it would. Not that I expected to win, but I honestly thought this was going to be a very small competition. I didn't follow pop culture too much, and the only way that I heard about this competition was from people texting me. And so I drove there just kind of for fun to see what was going on, just to kind of say that I went, and I expected to see, maybe 20, maybe 30 people in the park. And when I showed up there, there looked to be about 1,000 people there, and there were like news agencies. And, it was definitely not what I had anticipated. And so I realized when I got there, it was a big deal. But even then, I didn't realize the magnitude. It wasn't until I won and everybody surrounded me and they picked me up and I was on, maybe one or two people's shoulders. And everybody surrounded me. And I stayed on that hill in Humboldt Park for about 2 to 3 hours after, just taking pictures with everybody.
Wow, it's like you won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it felt, I definitely felt like a celebrity that day.
The Humboldt Park Super Bowl. So I guess I'm just like curious because I first of all, it's something that like I think is cool. It makes me happy when I see people like put together these things. It makes me like, you know, it like reaffirms like faith in like people, that like people are doing fun things and getting out, and like other people are supporting, and everybody's on their phone the whole time. But like I think this was second to a Timothy Chalamet lookalike contest that was in New York.
Yeah, I think it got less press, if that's what you mean, than the one in New York.
I don't mean second. I mean like in chronological order second.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's also probably true. I'm just not sure because I don't follow too closely.
Yeah, well, I had remember seeing that around and and shocked at the turnout, right?
Yeah.
Like the Timothy Chalamet one probably had the same kind of turnout, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I saw some posts about it, and I was like, oh, maybe 70 people will show up. And then there's like 1,500 people.
Yeah.
So when I had seen that they were doing the Jeremy Allen White lookalike contest, I was like, oh, there'll probably be some people. Maybe, I don't know, it's Chicago. We'll see.
Yeah.
And then to see how many people was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was blown away. It was packed. I wasn't expecting that. But it added to the energy. You know, it was a really fun event. And, you know, I'm happy I went. I'm happy I won. And I agree with you. It says something about the need to get out and connect with other people. It feels like things like that don't happen enough. You know, I didn't feel like people were on their phones, although a lot of people were recording, but it seemed like people were like talking more and connecting more, and they were all like passionate about the same thing, not about me, about the guy that I look like. And it was just a great energy, and it just made me think like, man, these not the lookalike contest necessarily, but opportunities for people to come out and get together and cheer on something or connect over something that's bigger than themselves is a really healthy thing.
Yeah, which is cool. And I always find it interesting what people deem bigger than themselves, right? Because that's what gets you out there, right?
Yeah.
Like the first time I saw this, even in any kind of context, was somebody was like putting these flyers out in New York, saying that they were going to eat an entire container of Costco cheese balls.
Yeah.
And just you would see this flyer like out in the streets, and you'd see it like on Instagram and stuff. And then you saw this man in Washington Square Park with like 3,000 people there on like a little soapbox holding a thing of cheese balls, and he eats them all, and people just go wild. It's like that's like what we're hungering for now after so much reality TV and shit. We just want to watch a guy eat 300 cheese balls and maybe throw up.
Yeah, I can't explain that very well. People are.
Well, you're a therapist. Tell me about what I just explained.
What draws people to cheese balls? I can't say. But I do think you're right that technology and social media probably impact what people are looking for a lot, because there's a lot more content in your face, a lot more unusual stuff in your face. You're being exposed to things that 20 years ago you weren't. And not only are you being exposed to it, you're being exposed to it all the time.
I watched 3 dudes get murdered on Twitter today, and I was like, holy shit. You see like the wildest shit, you know?
Yeah.
So a guy got hit by a train. Like, you just see crazy shit.
Right. And what does that do to the psyche? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Yeah, nothing good. I feel like we're going back in time and what we could deem like public entertainment. Like we're going back to the days where people used to just wait on the docks and wave at a boat, like going away. Like, look at the size of that boat, Francis. And then you'd wave at the boat. They'd tell their grandkids, we saw the biggest boat leave the harbor.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? But people would start doing that now. You put some cheese balls on that boat, people will go wild. So you're also a mental health therapist.
Correct.
Which is different than a therapist, or it's the same thing?
No, if anybody can say they're a therapist, it's kind of just a general term. Mental health is just a little more specific. Yeah.
Can anybody say that, or do I need to have some sort of degree? I guess anybody could say it.
Anybody can say it, but to practice, you need to have a degree.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've perfected it. It's an interesting subject for me because we actually had somebody on the podcast yesterday who considers I guess he's not a therapist, considers himself a mental health, I don't know, I would say like guru or something.
Okay.
He's more on the spiritual side of it, right? But he was very interesting, and it was a lot about discipline and rethinking your mind. To me, it just sounded like discipline.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, or do you have like a different strategy outside of like I guess I didn't tell you what you're agreeing with. Essentially, he would say things like, you just have to retrain your mind, get rid of negative thoughts. And the way to do it is just being very consistent and making sure you just nip it in the bud right away and fix the negative thought and then reaffirm with a very positive thought.
Yeah.
Which, while I thought it was a good notion, I had a lot of questions and skepticisms about. So I'm curious, like, would you agree with that, or would you say something different as like a therapist?
Well, I think that's a strategy that definitely could work. There's a lot of validity to that. It's in line with something called cognitive behavior therapy, where you're identifying a type of thought, you're replacing it with a different thought. And that has a lot of research behind it. It's effective. There is an element of discipline to it, like you're saying, because you have to be very intentional, and you have to practice and just get in the habit of doing things like that. And you're doing them under challenging circumstances. The whole reason you're doing it is because the thinking is making you stressed, it's making you anxious, it's making you depressed. And so it's under those circumstances that you have to apply those skills. And so, it is very challenging. And that's definitely a real useful tool. That's not all of psychology. And that can definitely correct for some unhealthy habits, but there's different branches of psychology, and people take all different approaches to things. That obviously, as I'm sure you can imagine, doesn't get as deep as other types of therapy, like psychoanalysis, where you're looking at very early experiences and traumas and repressed emotions and thoughts and things of that nature. And so that's a long response.
No, that's a good response. Do you think when you're talking about those things, like the repressed thoughts and the early childhood trauma, is that stuff you really you get into with anybody, or is it like the more severe the illness or the thing you're treating, the more severe like how far back we have to go?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it depends on your expertise, your training, your philosophy, how you come into it as a therapist, what your approach is. But also you tailor things to the client, and the same, just like anything in life, there's no one size fits all model. And so one strategy can work for one person and it's not effective for another person, and people respond differently to things. And so, as a therapist, it's my job to get to know my clients and know what makes them tick and build a really good relationship with them. And then in doing that, we can together figure out what strategy is going to be most helpful for them.
That's interesting. I'm also curious because I know a couple therapists as well. Mm-hmm. As a therapist, do you don't have to, like, maybe you don't want to admit to it. Also, we can cut anything out if you don't want to. As a therapist, how do you feel like you yourself are put together? Do you put a lot of the things you take in as practice in your daily life? Mm-hmm. Or do you feel like I just know the tools to give them out to people? And I ask because a lot of the therapists I know are the most fucked up people I've ever met.
Is that right?
Yeah. They're and I feel like the more intense the therapist they are, mm-hmm. the crazier as I know them as a friend. Like I know a friend who is works with like young children who have been through some like fucked up things. Okay. I don't know what her degree is or what her job is specifically, but like I know it's pretty heavy. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, if you met her outside of work, you'd be like, you're a therapist?
Right. What was your question?
Do you feel like you put your daily things that you teach people?
Yeah. So I definitely practice what I preach.
Okay.
I like to give people a lot of different strategies that they can use. And that's actually one of the things I do with my social media is I try to put out a lot of different strategies. That doesn't mean that you need to use all the strategies, but I like to expose people to as many as possible so that they can figure out what works. Some of them I know personally work for me, or maybe they work for one of my friends, or maybe they work for a family. So I have more direct exposure to it. But honestly, treating your own mental health and dealing with your own issues, it's not so much about having 1,000 tools. What's important is that you just have a few tools, even one or two, that you can rely on, that are going to work. Bruce Lee is famous for one of his quotes. He said, "I'm not scared of the guy who's hit 10,000 moves. I'm scared of the guy who's hit one move 10,000 times."
Yeah.
And it's the same when you're battling your own mental health issues. You want to just have a strategy that you can go to like second nature when you're dealing with an issue. It doesn't matter if you could pull out 500 different strategies. You just need one or two that you've used before. It's going to work. And just knowing that you have those in your back pocket can actually, make you feel more calm.
What do you have like daily ones, like one or two that you use? You would mention?
Yeah. Let's see. So one of them is I always try to focus on things that are in my control. And you hear that a lot in our field, focus on what you can control and not what you can't control. But it's actually a really challenging thing to do. People get very caught up in aspects of their life that they have no control over. And sometimes you don't even realize that you're spending so much mental energy that a problem is consuming so much of your time and your energy.
Oh my God.
When you can't actually do anything about it. And it's frustrating, and it's because you can't do anything about it, you feel helpless, and it's a self-perpetuating cycle. You get more frustrated, feel more helpless, right? So instead, there has to be some acceptance and some recognition that some of these things are out of my control, and certain situations I'm going to have very little, maybe hardly any impact on it. But there's maybe one or two things that I can influence in a certain way. Those are the things that I have to focus on.
That's interesting. That gives you some sort of autonomy over the situation, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, I definitely found myself in that position a lot. Like I've definitely been in the shower and my girlfriend in the other room is like, "What are you saying?" And I'm like realizing I'm having a conversation with somebody who's not there because I'm so in my head about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, this motherfucker.
Yeah, it's people get in their own heads all the time, and the self-talk, what you're talking about right there, that happens. We all do that. We have that voice in our head. Another thing that I do is for anxiety, and a lot of people use this. I was actually just talking about this strategy on WGN a couple of days ago. But a lot of people, when they feel they have a thought that causes them anxiety, and they get that thought, they start to feel the anxiety, so they don't actually let the thought play out in their head. Instead, they feel so anxious, they just kind of cut off that thought, and they obsess or they focus on the anxiety, and then when they start to think about it again, they start from the beginning of the thought, and that cycle just keeps on going. So it's like I have the thought, I start to feel anxious, stop the thought, go back to the beginning of the thought. I keep replaying that same thought. But the best strategy for that is you have to let yourself think that through. Even though you're dealing with the anxiety at the same time, the anxiety can't stop you from letting that thought play out in its entirety. Because when you let a thought play out in its entirety, you get to the end, you almost always realize that the end result is something you can deal with. You have to think, I always challenge my clients to think worst case scenario when they're caught up in a situation that's very stressful, very anxiety inducing. Okay, so let's just play out this scenario. Let's play it out this way. Let's play it out this way. What is the worst case? How could this end? Okay, when they actually let themselves do it, then we land at a spot where I say, okay, that's the worst. Then what? Is that something you can deal with? Is that something we're going to be able to handle? Yeah.
Yeah. I think anybody can relate. I've definitely been awake at 3 a.m. trying to not think of the thoughts that more so like embarrassing things. Did I fucking say that? Like
totally.
When you remember something you did in 7th grade in social studies, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then I guess you're right. If you think it through, you're like, nobody remembers that except your friends.
Except your friends, right? And then that's a great example. And then even if your friends remember it, so what?
Yeah, it is a so what, but there's definitely that initial, like every time you have the thought, you just go,
Yeah, you don't, and then you cut it off, right? You don't actually.
And then you make a habit of cutting it off every time because you're just teaching yourself to do that.
You teach yourself to do that, and you don't like the anxiety is an adverse feeling, and so you don't like it. You try to stop it. How do you stop it? You just cut off the thought.
Yeah.
But the truth, it's kind of counterintuitive. The truth is, we'll keep pushing the thought through, and the anxiety will go away.
Yeah, that's true because you're dealing with it.
Yeah.
Do you think? First of all, you said something earlier. Are you a big Bruce Lee fan?
I'm a fan. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan.
Okay. Well, you brought him up, so I was curious if you like. Do you like his philosophy, or is he just an example you like to use?
He's an innovator. He's a legend. I like watching his old videos.
Yeah.
like his actual fighting videos or when he's demonstrating a move. So I'm always just impressed by him and the impact that he had on his culture. And he was a smaller guy. And do you like Bruce Lee?
I do. I don't know everything about him.
Yeah,
but I know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, I think he's really cool for a lot of reasons. But the thing that resonates with me the most is that he inspired a lot of kids who were being picked on in school, who were smaller, and they saw him as this guy who was a small guy who could stand up to these big bullies just because he learned the craft so well. And I thought that was he's done so much good stuff and interesting stuff, but to me, for some reason, that stuck with me. So I am a fan.
I believe he got started in Hong Kong because he was getting beat up every time after school. And he actually started training with, the guy's name is Ip Man. Okay. And there's a bunch of really cool Kung Fu movies about him called Ip Man.
Okay.
He's this Chinese guy that I think was they were living in Hong Kong at the time.
Yeah.
And he did... I think it's called like wushu or something like that. Wushu. It's like a kind of martial art where you like do a lot of this.
Okay.
But it's all about having like flowy movements.
Yeah.
Like bend with the bamboo kind of thing, and like knocking people out of the way and like using their momentum against them.
Okay.
And then he took that and like Ip Man's supposedly like one of the greatest martial artists ever.
Okay.
It's also some of the coolest movies.
Oh,
if you ever watch, there's Ip Man 1, 2, and 3, and I think Mike Tyson was in 2.
Yeah, I mean, you get some guys that really know the technique, and you're not going to go wrong. They're doing their own stunts, and they're doing them the right way. And, that's a good recipe.
Do you think? I've always wondered this. Do you think like? I guess we'll call it like mental health and like mental health therapy, like bettering yourself in that sense, has something that's always been around, and like we see evidence of this in like earlier civilizations and even like a couple hundred years ago? Or do you think it's like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing where like we're at a point now where we could start to have some time to do these things?
Man, that is such a good, deep question right there. That is such a good question. I have to think about that. So therapy, I think, must have existed since humans have evolved, but not in the traditional sense. Not where you're laying down, not the way we think about it. Laying down on the couch, someone talking with you, but some method of comforting the mind, comforting the soul. That could just be through talking to people.
Yeah.
Through, different things are therapeutic. Maybe that's a good way to start. It doesn't have to be traditional therapy, talk therapy. But anything that makes you feel good, that calms you down, can be considered therapeutic. And so I don't know when. I should probably know the history a little better, when we actually decided that this was going to be.
What you got there? I got to read it to us, Nick. I can't read that.
Okay, well, I can't read it.
Okay.
Basically, it says that the first example of therapy was in 1500 BC by papyrus, or Ebers papyrus,
Okay.
Egyptian, and they believe that mental illness, spiritual or physically, cause it. So there's examples in the Egyptians, in 2000 BC in ancient Mesopotamia. That's where prayer came from a lot. Ritual cleansings.
Yeah, that's
exorcisms. Kind of go under that, I guess.
Yeah, religion could be considered a form of therapy. That's what I was thinking. Like anything that is embedded in human culture, provides many things, provides some sort of therapy for us.
Walk is therapy to me, so there's examples for sure.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where my question was coming from. And Nick exactly answered it. Like, were people doing this in like ancient Samaria, Mesopotamia? Was it religion? Was it like, there's definitely been periods for sure. Like if you look at like, probably even like the Protestant, like United States in like the 1600s, like in the colonies, like where everybody's a witch, like probably pretty stressful to be around, right? But then I feel like there's got to be pockets, like in these long civilizations, the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, like you hear about so much stuff, like take the Spartans, for example, right? Like they had just such a regimented culture, but the things that they like worshipped and like needed seem very like brotherly and like I'm here for you and like I'll sacrifice my life, you know, like kind of like a support system in a way that like allowed them to be greater than most people.
Absolutely. I mean, right, language obviously was the catalyst for us being able to talk about our problems, our feelings, right? But you know, even like chimpanzees, if one of them loses a battle, you'll see the other one will put his arm around the one that lost.
Holy shit!
Yeah. So even without words, you can exhibit you know, therapeutic behavior. But yeah, for humans, I mean, and it evolves with language, it evolves with vocabulary. One of the most important things I think to be an effective therapist is to have a good emotional vocabulary. And the reason for that is because when you are feeling a certain way, when a client is feeling a certain way, sometimes there is no better feeling than having the right word applied to your emotion. And similar to like when you're sick, just the relief of getting a diagnosis. You know, I've been with, you know, some people say I've been to a lot of doctors. They've been looking at this issue. Nobody can figure it out. You go to one doctor, finally, he's like, I know what you got, you know?
Yeah.
And they diagnose it and you feel so much relief. Well, that happens on a much smaller scale when you're in therapy and you're trying to describe a situation, an issue, a way that you're feeling. And the therapist says, so you must be feeling X.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be a strong relief to like have somebody get it. There's definitely got to be a reassurance there, like somebody hears me at least. On that like same note, like I guess like, okay, so like I went to therapy for, I don't know, a couple weeks and I hated it.
Okay.
But I'm not saying therapy is bad. Like I just think I didn't have a great therapist. It felt like very elementary to me, and like all the things I wanted to talk about, they didn't seem very interested. It almost kind of felt like, and I wonder if you see some of this in the therapeutic community. But like it almost felt like she just wanted like the gossip of what was going on. Like her questions were less like what's root cause and more so like, so did you go on any dates this week? Like did you talk to this person? And I felt like I was a reality show for my therapist.
That's an interesting experience, and I bet you that's not that uncommon. There's a wide range of therapists, you know, and some of them are more skilled than others.
Yeah.
And also, even if you're comparing multiple skilled therapists, one might be a much better fit for you. You just might connect to them personally. I mean, the biggest thing in therapy is rapport with your therapist. So you can be talking to somebody who understands the theory to a T, is very knowledgeable, very smart, but personality-wise, you guys aren't connecting, so they won't be an effective therapist for you. So you really need both things, and the rapport is number one. And so there's a wide range of ability, and there's a wide range of personality.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you feel like you still, I would just say, don't let that one experience tarnish your picture of all therapists, because there's such a wide variety.
Yeah, and it did not. I mean, like, I'm not anti-therapy by any means. Just more curious if that's like something you see a lot. Because granted, to your point, like not all therapists are created equal. Not all anybody is equal in anything you do.
Yeah.
So you're going to have that. I was wondering, and your answer is probably right. There's probably quite a bit of that in certain areas of therapy.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like I wasn't in your therapy session, and every therapist.
You were. You were there. You were on the couch.
Every therapist has a different approach, but my approach typically is I like to talk about the things that the client is bringing up.
Yeah.
If it's a situation where the client isn't talking, that sometimes can change the dynamic to where you're asking questions to elicit some information. But, you know, if you were talking about a very specific circumstance in your life or something, and she kept switching gears to like, did you go to a party last week? That seems a little odd to me.
Well, I think so I use humor, I find, to deal with most of my things.
Yeah, that's
and I just find my situation to be funny, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny. I think that would be a good joke, you know, and like it's an outlet, and then I tell it on stage, and then I feel better, you know.
Yeah.
But she what was the funniest part was,
wait, on stage, are you a comedian?
Yes.
You're a stand-up comedian?
Oh yeah. That's why we did the podcast.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I love stand-up comedy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is probably my number one source of entertainment. Actually, it's for sure my number one source of entertainment.
Oh, for real?
I'm more impressed by comedians than I am by any other person. I think it's the hardest job to stand on a stage and with all
Neurosurgeon's pretty hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on your personality. Of course, you got to have a good stage presence and be skilled, but to stand on a stage and make the crowd laugh, they're staring at you, waiting for you to make them laugh. That is a hard job. That is a hard job. I respect it. I'm going to give you a handshake.
Oh, sweet, dude. You got a handshake from Ben Shabad. Yeah, no, I do. I'm a stand-up comic. And yeah, I find that like dealing with trauma through like an art form to be super helpful. I'll tell a joke about it. I'll make a sketch or a film about it.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the more validity that thing gets, the better I will end up feeling.
Sure.
But there was one point I went to therapy and I was really upset with what was going on. That's the only reason I went. I was kind of forced into going by ex-wife.
Okay.
She was like, you got to go. And I was like, all right, fine. And I went. I didn't want to be there. And one day I walked in and my therapist goes, you look pretty depressed. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, just maybe try and cheer up. And I just like was like, what? And then I remember walking home and burst out laughing. I was like, is that real? And now it's a story I get to use.
That's pretty funny.
I wanted to ask you, since you did the Jeremy Allen White Lookalike contest, do you have people like inquiring about therapy, like especially girls who are like have a crush on Jeremy Allen White, like I want him as my therapist?
That's not typical.
No, okay.
No, people do reach out to me for therapy, but nobody will tell me if it's for that reason.
Okay, so you don't really know, but maybe you have like an inkling sometimes. You're like, okay,
I don't know. I've never really come to that conclusion with any of the people that have sought me out for therapy.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of comments on social media about me, like I want him to be my therapist, and some pretty clear.
I would imagine some of that for sure.
There's a lot of that. But when people are serious about therapy and they're actually directly reaching out to me, no, I haven't gotten too much of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Did you grow up very religious?
No, not religious at all.
Where'd you grow up?
Where or what?
Where?
Lincolnwood.
Oh, you grew up in Lincolnwood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, my grandparents love Elwoods.
Oh, yeah.
I love going there with them because you look around and everybody's like 85 plus, and you're like, someone's about to die in the soup. But it's good food.
It is great food. Elwood's one of the top restaurants, definitely for the suburbs. Fantastic restaurant.
So you went to high school. When you went to high school, you lived in Lincolnwood?
Yes.
Did you go to the Bunny Hutch a lot?
I did go to the Bunny. You know all the places, yeah.
Well, I grew up not there. I grew up just around Chicago my whole life. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The Bunny Hutch. I love that place. Spent a lot of time there as a kid.
I feel like I didn't live close enough as a kid, but I feel like that's like probably a huge first date spot in like middle school and high school.
Yeah, I mean they got the batting cages, they got the golf, they got the restaurant. It's kind of in a cool area it's where the suburb borders Chicago, and so right on Lincoln right there, and there's kind of a lot of action for a kid. It's exciting.
Yeah. And then you practice on off of, I guess, Devon.
I have office space there, but the truth is all of my clients now, and I think this is just a trend, they want virtual therapy.
That's so interesting because I wanted the opposite.
There are still people that want in person, prefer in person, but the ones that have been contacting me almost always request, or if I give them the option, they just say, let's do virtual. So.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
The one thing that shocked me about the in-person appointment was the room. I was really expecting the traditional couch therapy setup, and I got in there because it was the first time I've ever been to therapy, and I realized this is probably just like a trope or like a motif they use in TV shows. It's probably pretty antiquated, but I was also like, I had like a chair like that's right there. I was like, this doesn't feel right.
You have a different picture in your mind. This would make for an interesting therapy room.
It will, right? This couch, yeah.
I mean, just like I wonder if you set this up, how the impact that would have on the client.
So tell me how Frank Thomas makes you feel.
Yeah.
You gotta make them comfortable.
Yeah, you do. No, I mean, I think therapy can happen in any environment. I don't think the room's that important, to be honest. But obviously, if you're seeing a lot of clients, you don't want to have it too, on one side.
Yeah. I guess not in the sense of girls hitting you up, like I asked before, but like on the broader sense, have you found that like this Jeremy Allen Lookalike contest has helped your career and like get your reach out?
It's helped. It's not like generating income for me, so it hasn't helped in a financial sense, but it's helped because it's perpetuating what I like to do, and I like talking about mental health. I like learning about mental health. I like spreading mental health awareness. I like reducing the stigma about mental health, and so instead of meeting with people one-on-one like you do as a therapist. Now I'm talking to a huge audience, which I didn't
Right, like
have
on
before.
WGN and stuff. Yeah,
Even on my Instagram now, I've got a good amount of followers. So I can talk about a subject that I like a lot. I can share a tool, a trick, a technique that I think is really effective, and that's why I got into this field, because I enjoy it. I think it's super interesting, and I like helping people. And so to be able to combine those things, and I was just lucky that I won this contest and I was given this platform. And so now, yeah, it helps me in my career in that sense.
that's cool. Do you? The guy I was talking to yesterday kind of defined it in a different way that I would expect.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot,
No.
but could you like define what mental health is?
Yeah. Define what mental health is. So, I think a lot of people talk about it now. The term has changed a little bit to mental wellness. And I would say it's just about how you're feeling in your mind, in your body, your comfort level, your levels of stress. It's just how resilient you are, how you tolerate. Look, as humans in society, we all deal with stress. We all encounter stress. So mental health is about how you deal with that. How do you overcome? And how do you move forward? How do you turn negative situations into positive ones, And again, we all deal with challenges. And so mental health to me is like your ability to overcome that and to live happily, to pursue your goals, and not feel like you can't handle it,
So yeah, and the guy yesterday said something similar, a little different, but what shocked me about both your answers is it had nothing to do with, I think the word, and maybe that's why they changed the term mental health has always had a stigma around it, like there is a disease or something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And while I think it encompasses that, it doesn't encompass the part where it's like, yeah, sometimes we just have to like be better. We have to treat our mental health the same as we would like our physical health. Like you go running, like do you do anything for your mental health?
Right.
I do these exercises every day. I train my brain this. I hear my thoughts out fully, so I can break patterns. Like it felt almost like fitness and discipline the way you've described it.
Yeah, that's exactly how. That's exactly how I feel about it. You put it into better words than I did, but that's what it is. I mean, it's just a measure of how you're doing, just like physical health. It's not. It doesn't mean a good thing or a bad thing. It doesn't indicate anything. It's just kind of a measure. And that's what mental health is. Mental wellness is. It's just how you're functioning, and you can improve it, and it can get worse.
Yeah, it sure can.
Yeah, and so a lot of that comes down to your history, your experiences, your intentionality, your willingness to progress. Your ability to be self-aware.
Yeah, self-awareness I think probably is huge in that field. Do you think there's a need for people to kind of have their cheat days from mental health in order to stay healthy?
I don't know. That's funny, because then you're really making the comparison between that and working out. I don't know what a cheat day for mental health would look like.
I'll describe one.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. So like obviously we know what a cheat day is. I ate good. I worked out well all week long.
Yeah.
Sunday, I'm going to not going to be a maniac like The Rock. Have you seen his cheat day videos?
No.
Oh, it's insane. Pull one up in a second, Nick. I think it's just for show. He's like, I'm going to have 32 burgers and 16 pancakes. And you're like, this is the most disgusting. You can't be enjoying this.
Right.
But like, not at that level, but like a regular cheat day. Hey, I'm going to have some pizza today. I'm going to have some beer. A mental health cheat day might be like, you know what? I was good with reaffirming my thoughts. I checked in on myself. I heard all my thoughts through. And you know what? Today I don't want to deal with shit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to scroll on my phone for 6 to 8 hours and be a complete piece of shit.
Yeah.
And feel awful.
Okay.
But then I'll have the motivation tomorrow to get out of it again.
I see what you're saying. So, yeah. Yeah, you could do that. I guess
I'm saying do you think that's healthy, or do you think that's like an excuse for people to kind of fall back into bad habits?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it can be healthy, but okay, the reason why I wasn't, why I don't see it as an exact analogy is because something like scrolling on your phone could be a healthy thing for mental health,
Oh, for real?
Well, it's not something I'm coming out and recommending, but anything.
I think you're recommending it.
Just, we need to de-stress. Part of mental health is how do you de-stress?
That's a solid point. You have to de-stress.
For some people, they scroll on their phone because it takes away their stress.
Yeah.
Now if you're taking away your stress all the time by drinking or by smoking or by scrolling on your phone, those are not good habits. But if sometimes you just need to take your mind off something, I don't view that as much as cheating like I would, or taking a day off as much as like eating a bunch of pancakes if you're on a diet.
Okay, that's a good point. Will you pull up that video you were just showing, Nick? I want to show you this. This is insane.
The Rock?
Yeah, The Rock. This guy goes nuts. What do you think of... Are you able to tell from afar, just as, I guess, an expert in the mental health therapy, what celebrities have it together and which ones are just about to burst at the seams?
No, I can't tell.
See, this is his cheat day. It's insane. What has he got there? He's got like 6 burritos in front of him, cut in half, and he's going to smother peanut butter. No, it's French toast, I think. But it's just an insane amount of food. It's disgusting. There's no way he's having fun at this point.
He needs it though, because you know what? He's there's too much control. It's probably he's rebelling against the control. Sometimes
he's rebelling against the control.
He's always under so much control. Maybe
just so strong.
Sometimes those cheat days, that's actually what they symbolize. You're trying to rebel against something. And like if eating healthy and exercising were making you feel good, why would you want to rebel against it?
Yeah.
So. That is quite the cheat day, though.
Yeah,
he's not playing around with those snacks,
right? But he's also not a regular dude. You are correct. He is a 350-pound like rock of a Samoan man. Like he is. he can eat. And
you know what else is funny about that? Just talking about physical health. Sometimes I think people that are on really strict diets or really strict workout regimens, I also don't think the cheating applies, because what I think ends up happening is the reason that you want all that is because you develop such a craving for something. And why do you develop that craving? It's because your body is telling you need it. You know what I'm saying? There's such a craving for sugar.
I see what you're saying.
I'm a big proponent of listening to your body, and like if you're, for example, on a diet and you're like, man, I really would kill for some Oreos. I'd kill for some donuts. Well, why the Oreo? Why the donuts? Is it the sugar? Well, I bet you that means that you're lacking some sugar,
Or couldn't you also be addicted to sugar?
That's an issue too. Absolutely. I bet you a lot of people are addicted to sugar.
Yeah. It's called diabetes, bro.
Right.
No, but for real, I 100% get what you're saying. Yeah. It's listen to your body. Mm-hmm. And this was exactly what I was asking about earlier when I said I was talking to some guy yesterday who considered himself a mental health guru, essentially. But I was like, I liked a lot of the things he said, but some of them felt almost self-empowering, and it's not him necessarily. I'm not calling him out. Like, I hear it, and I don't hear it called mental health therapy. I hear it called like so many other things. But it's like, okay, let's reaffirm a positive thought instead of a negative one, right? I think we could all agree.
Right.
However, my brain starts to wondering, okay, what if we start reaffirming positive thoughts when I'm doing negative things? Do I need that balance to tell me, like, to your point, like, does my body need sugar? Yeah. But has it maybe also had enough and I just like the sugar?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. You can't just reaffirm a thought. You can't act blindly. You have to be self-aware. To our point earlier, you have to know what we're talking about.
And you brought that up earlier. A big part is self-awareness.
Yeah. So you can't be, drinking a ton of alcohol and say like, oh, this is actually a good thing. Let me reaffirm that thought. This is a good thing. This is a positive thing. Just because you say it doesn't make it true. You have to know for yourself what's true. And so that's why you have to decide, like, what thoughts do I want going through my head? What helps me feel better? And is it good for me? And what in life, there are just decisions and there are consequences. There's no, and that's it. And you have to decide if the decisions that you're making are giving you the consequences that you want.
Yeah.
And if they're not, you got to change those decisions.
I think it's just me and where I like to take things in my brain, but I always just wonder, like, could you get so good at mental health, like from a health wellness standpoint, like we compare it to physical, that like take physical health, for example, right? A lot of the people who are in the gym 6 days a week eating perfectly, probably are like to a certain extent, like just crazed people. I want to say crazy, but I think I don't want to put that on them, but like just common people would say, oh, that's crazy. Right. But like also like, they got to go in there to fight off some demons. And this is their regimen. And if they break from it, it's not going to be good for them. And they know that. Is there a level of mental health where I could be so good at retraining my brain that I go out, I drink a ton, right? I'm eating bad. But I wake up in the morning and all those regrets actually were good things because I'm such a positive person that everybody I interact with had a great time. I helped somebody save their mortgage. I helped somebody refinance their credit cards, right? Like you said, consequences. Is it bad for me? Yeah, maybe. But did a lot of other people benefit?
You're thinking about the guy last night.
But I don't want to.
That's a funny scenario. I mean, I feel like I could just respond in a few different ways there.
I mean, it's not a serious question. It's not like a real.
I know.
Question.
I mean, you could obviously do something that's bad for yourself, and it can have positive outcomes. For other people, maybe even for yourself. But what I'm talking more about when I talk about.
A bunch of drugs and speak a bunch of life into a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly. That's another example, right?
That's kind of how it seemed like the last mental health guy.
Got it. I mean, that's not my approach, but, just I'm more about developing good habits, physical habits, mental habits, thinking through your decisions and believing in what you do. A huge thing is also just finding purpose. I think that helps guide your decisions, more than anything else. It's like, what are we doing here? How do you want to spend your time on earth? What matters to you? What do you value? And then you have a way to measure your decisions.
What did you call it? You said finding purpose. Okay.
Whatever that means for you, it's going to mean something different for everybody, but that might mean with your family, that might mean with your career, that might mean, with, charity or whatever you're dedicating your time to. You have to think about the things that you value. Life is short, and so you gotta be happy and feel satisfied and be proud of how you're spending your time. And so that's really what I think is so important for people. And sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of a loss in that, for that in society right now. Like not enough people have that. And
I think that's why we strive for like the cheese ball entertainment.
Comes full circle.
But it does, but like not even joking. Like I think there's a lack of purpose. So it is just something fun we can all get behind. And I think that creates the purpose in itself. Like the purpose doesn't have to be so serious. It could just be to enjoy.
Right. Absolutely. And I just think if you're generally moving towards something that you care about and you're doing things you care about, then those little decisions just fall into place more easily. Whereas like if you are directionless and you just haven't found your purpose, a cause that you care about, even a religion or anything, then every decision could be catastrophic potentially.
And I think you've answered my question in a couple ways too, and I think everything, there's good and bad in everything. And I keep asking you stuff around like, could I be so good at mental health that like I do good, but it's bad? And religion's a great example, right? Can religion be a positive force? Like I love being Jewish. I'm not super religious at all.
Okay.
My family really isn't either. But I love the tradition behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And back to what we were talking about earlier, I like the tradition behind it. I like being with my family for Rosh Hashanah, Passover, just the things we do together and have this thing that we do that's ours is really healthy and feels good. However, there's so many examples of religion that go bad. So it's really what you put into it and what you get out of it. I feel like at the end of the day.
And for you, it sounds like it's not just the religion; it's the associations you have.
Nothing to do with the religion
family,
itself,
right? and all that. And that's obviously what you value. You get to spend time with your family. You have these unique experiences together. You guys are sharing, a space, and there's love, and there's warmth there, and that's what you care about.
And you find families that don't have that, either find a way to put that in there or lack that, and it becomes, it's almost like they're craving it. They're craving togetherness. They're craving like that bond.
Yep.
Because I guess with my family, it's always been like family, not family first, but family is everything, right? And there's people in my family, I'm not going to name them, that I don't like being around,
Okay.
But like, it's not like I'm not going because I don't want to be around that person. That's not even a question. It's their family.
Sure.
But yeah, they're fucking annoying.
It happens in families.
There was something I wanted to. We were talking about purpose.
Yeah.
Something I learned not too long ago was they did this study about people who lived long, healthy lives. And one thing they all had in common was they all had friends from childhood and maintained those friendships.
Okay.
They also had purpose.
Yeah.
And I think of like my grandparents, who I'm also close with. They have like their. Oh, that's you?
Sorry.
I take a birth control pill. Do you need to take that?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just here. Let me actually turn off the alarm.
Oh no, you're fine, man. It's not a big deal. But they all have their same friends from childhood, right?
Yeah.
And like their elementary school friends. They've obviously made new friends along the way. But when somebody loses in their friend group, like a spouse of like 50, 60 years, while they're devastated and upset, they don't stop doing their daily things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like they're searching a purpose. It feels like they just grab a new purpose and it's not that serious. And I love that. And I think the part of the reason they've had friends for so long is because, that generation comes from more, if it's broken, fix it, not throw it out and get a new one.
Yeah. That's an interesting study. I totally believe it. And there's purpose in that though. Like having friends and having purpose aren't two separate things. See, they've had these lifelong friends. Well, what is that? That's a community right there. And people find purpose in their community. So that group of 10 friends, whatever they have, they've known their whole life. That's like we're kind of designed we've evolved in tribes.
Yeah.
And so you might not have a personal, like a separate purpose or meaning for your life, but you are giving yourself to the tribe. You have purpose within the tribe. And when you have a group of friends your whole life, that is your purpose. That's your group right there.
Yeah. 100%. I don't know if this is true, but I've definitely heard this a lot. People say, like, to that same tribe analogy, that's why a lot of people have a fear of public speaking, because the biggest fear was being you against the tribe and possibly being exiled. You never wanted to be in that position.
Yeah. I bet you that plays a role for sure. Also, there's like aspects of being vulnerable and
there's a lot to it. I'm sure.
Nobody wants to stand out. But I also, going back to the point about human connection and purpose, I wonder about that when we talk about people starting to work more remotely. If you think about previous generations, you were going to the office, you were hired by a company, you were dedicated to that company, you were loyal to that company. That was your company. You were staying there your whole career.
There's no such thing as a company man anymore.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so you would show up and you had you had some purpose in that company. You knew the people that worked there. You guys were connected. You guys were a team. And so you didn't just jump ship typically and go to another company and then this team pays me more and I'm going over there. No, this was your group and you stayed there and you were, and that gave you purpose.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder sometimes about this new culture where, people are working remotely, and if a different company, that's in a different state or a different country pays me $5 more, I'm going over there now. You
100%.
You don't develop these relationships. You don't see the people in person, and I feel like that can lead to just a lonelier existence. And when you're more lonely, there's less purpose, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would imagine people Nick and I and a couple other people went down to I split my time between here and New York for comedy. Okay. So we were in New York, I think it was in October, and we did like this whole 2-day on the street talking to people.
Yeah.
And it led up to me headlining a couple clubs, and then we just kind of filmed the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I tried to build the set I did off of the conversations I had.
Okay.
Dropping Standing on Business in 2 weeks on YouTube.
Okay.
We're gonna release it, but what a lot of people said to us, the sentiment was from a few people was, in New York, even being outside in such a busy city, it's very lonely for a lot of people. And it's lonelier because it's so busy.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that. For sure. Sometimes if you come from a small town, you feel more connected to the people. It's like there's too many people, you don't connect with anybody. I could see that.
Have you been in New York?
Yeah. I actually lived there for one summer. I think it was right after college.
Oh, nice.
Lived on the Upper East Side. Yeah.
On the Upper East Side, yeah.
Yep. I like Chicago better.
I do too.
Yeah.
It's tough for me, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people because I try and make this podcast as Chicago as possible.
Yeah.
Just want to support people from Chicago, people coming through, and what's your connection with Chicago? Lincolnwood, the Bunny Huts, all that stuff, Elwoods, that's cool to me. But there's so much opportunity elsewhere, especially for comedy, film, acting, just anything in the arts really exists in New York, LA, and some other places where I feel like you give up a big piece of you to go there because Chicago is so great.
Chicago's so great. I've been to a lot of cities. I don't know if this has been your experience too, but I think Chicago is unrivaled in so many respects. I mean, nothing has everything that Chicago has to offer. Some people complain about.
I would agree 100%.
Yeah, and I think maybe we're biased because we live here, we're from Chicago, but
that's part of the love of Chicago and why we feel that way. Totally. Nobody's excited about being from Topeka.
Right. That's a good point. People complain about the weather here, but I actually think that's one of our strengths. I like that we have
1000% agree.
Right? It builds character. Nothing stays it's not the same thing. We're always looking to the next step. It's going to get cold. It's going to warm up. Things change in Chicago all the time. You constantly have to change your behavior. You got to adapt. And so I don't, it's not that I love when my car is stuck in the snow, but overall, I think it's a healthy thing. I think Chicago is the perfect size too. New York felt a little too big for me.
Yeah.
There are just areas of New York you're never going to go to because it's too big.
Nobody has any reason to go to Staten Island. Except Nick to go visit his family.
And don't get me wrong, I love New York, had a great time there. There's so much fun stuff to do. I would highly recommend it as a place to visit. But for living, it felt a little too big, a little too overwhelming. And other cities I go to...
It's dirty too, New York.
New York, yeah.
The trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's out on the street. It's pretty...
It's out in the streets, people just throwing shit. Nothing gets cleaned.
Yeah. So New York has its upsides, downsides, but it felt a little too big for me just to live there for the long term. Other cities I go to, they feel a little too small. So Chicago is just the perfect medium. It's a nice looking city. It's clean. There's a Midwest attitude, which, we have if we're from here, but you recognize it more as you travel more, as you meet other people. There's something about the Chicago personality that it's hard to pinpoint, it's hard to describe, but when you're talking to somebody from the Midwest, from Chicago,
1000%. And I think the people are nicer. I think you're correct. The weather builds character.
Yeah.
It also builds a sense of belonging and community.
Totally.
The weather alone, and that's why I love the Chicago Dive Bar. because there's few places in this country. I've been to a lot of fake dive bars in Austin and in Atlanta and insert San Francisco, and it's like, this isn't a dive bar. My tab was $182 for 3 drinks. Like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But in Chicago, we have this community of dive bars that it's just, I can go sit, drink, talk with the regulars.
Yep.
No matter who I am, I'm welcome to be in there and welcome to like chat and join the conversation.
Yep.
And the bartender will charge you $30-$40 at the end of the night. And it's a necessary part of this community.
Absolutely. And you know you're in a dive bar in Chicago because you see the regulars there.
The regulars is the dead giveaway.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same guys at the bar, same people at the bar. And I also like in Chicago, you see the dive bars, they're kind of hidden between the more well-established.
Some of them don't even have signs.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know they're there. They're kind of like speakeasies. And
it's our modern day speakeasy.
Yeah.
And they just want to keep out the influencers.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to some where you would not suspect that they were there, and you go in and it hasn't been changed in 50 years.
Yeah.
Same pictures, same pool table. It's lopsided.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I'll let you get out of here in a minute because I think we've been talking for about an hour. But I like to do this thing sometimes when the guest is like an interesting, and I think you're very interesting, called like rapid fire.
Okay.
Where I basically like ask you a question, not to therapize you, but I ask you a question and I want you to say the first thing that either pops in your head or like the first phrase.
Okay.
That's usually the best way to answer.
Okay.
We were talking a lot about purpose before. What do you think your purpose is?
You know, can I just tell you, I'm not going to be good at this game because it is not my instinct to just respond. I always just take a second.
Well, you could think too. Okay, yeah, that's okay.
So if you're looking for a rapid fire.
Well, I mean, usually I go, which favorite restaurant? And people go, I don't know. That's why I say the first thing.
Got it.
Because you go, I really like D'Amatos. But
yes, yeah. So what is my purpose?
Yeah.
Family. You know, I care most about family. I care most about our society, our Chicago culture. I love being a part of that. I feel valued here. I like that it's so big that everybody does their part, but I don't view anybody as being really above other people. We're all just doing our part. We're all taking our part. And so that's that. I find purpose in being part of a big thing like Chicago.
Okay, love it. That's cool, and it ties back into kind of what we were saying before. What do you find different than purpose? What do you find the biggest motivating factor in your life?
The biggest motivating factor. I like feeling like I'm having an impact. I like that in no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm talking to somebody, whether in my job as a therapist, I like seeing that I'm impacting my client. So just knowing that I'm having an impact, I think is something I care a lot about.
That's a great answer. Who do you look up to? A lot of people in my life. I've looked up to so many people. One of the reasons I feel so fortunate is because I've had so many amazing role models. People in my neighborhood, people that other people might not consider a role model, but you grow up around people, and I've always been very curious and very. I pay attention to the way people do things and how they operate, and that's one of the reasons that I think that I'm a good therapist, or I enjoy therapy so much, is I've always really liked listening to people and listening to their stories. Now, I can tell that other people were kind of they might get bored or whatnot, but I've always been, even for what other people might consider a mundane story, if somebody is sharing something about their life and experience that they had, I always found that I was tuning into that more than I would tune into other people. And I'm just naturally curious about other people's experiences, how they got to where they were. And so a lot of unexpected role models because of that, because I found certain people interesting and I would look up to them, or they were doing something that was unique and I would look up to them. And so who are they? They're no people that you would know. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good answer. I wonder what that is too. Like, that's a really, everybody wants to talk and everybody wants to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
It's very rare to find people who love to listen to people talk about themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful, man. You're going to find like some, I know you're married, but like some narcissist girlfriend would be like, I found one.
Yeah, no, I do. I do like listening. I don't get bored easily when people are telling their stories. So, I just always have questions. It's like even as you're talking, like questions are popping in my head about like how you got there when you were talking about your family and your religious experience and being a comedian. You know, I always just feel like I'm having follow-up questions because I just want to know more.
Yeah, it's a great skill. What's up, Nick?
No, I love it.
Yeah. We'll do 2 more.
Sure.
How do you relax? How do you unwind? Like, we talked earlier about de-stressing.
Yeah.
What's your go-to?
I do a lot of exercising.
Yeah.
So I try to do cardio. I do weightlifting. I read. I drink coffee. I probably drink a little too much coffee, but coffee is just helps me get into a good mental
Is coffee
state.
bad for you? I drink a lot of coffee.
I don't know. I've read controversial stuff. I definitely don't think in small doses. I'm no expert, but I don't think in small doses it's bad for you. I actually have read that it's good for you in small doses.
As like a neurostimulant?
Yeah, it's as a neurostimulant, but it also has a lot of antioxidants and things that are healthy for you. I'm sure you could overdo it, but I don't worry about negative health effects from it because I think from most of the stuff I've read, it feels pretty good to me. It feels pretty safe, pretty healthy. And I know just for me, like when I wake up from reading the paper and I'm drinking coffee, I'm in a good state of mind. I'm focused, I'm calm. And so we were talking about earlier, trust my body.
Yeah.
I trust the feeling.
So for you, it sounds mostly like routine. Physical fitness is important, and like these small treats throughout the day. Like I'm gonna have my coffee and have an espresso or whatever you drink, black coffee.
Totally.
What is your coffee? Is it black coffee, espresso?
Black coffee, you got
Me
it.
too. Yeah.
Black coffee. I do espresso. I'll do. I actually have an espresso maker at my house. I use it very frequently. So yeah.
I got this thing, and you got it. If you don't have one, get one. If you drink black coffee,
Okay.
it's a mocha pot. You know what those are?
No.
We pull up a picture of a mocha pot, MOKA. It's essentially like an old school coffee pot. It's like a percolator that will sit on like a stove.
Okay.
And you put, one of these, and you put water
I have
in the
seen
bottom.
those. Yeah.
But then you put the beans in.
Yeah.
And the coffee it brews is so strong.
No way.
That I have like a little espresso cup.
Yeah.
Fills up 2 of those, and I'm ready to go. I learned when I was doing shows in Miami about Cuban coffee.
Okay.
You take a little bit of sugar, just the smallest amount, and you put it over the coffee beans before it percolates.
Yeah.
It starts frothing. It comes up. I mean, we're talking like maybe a gram of sugar.
Okay.
Dude, it's just like, it's something nice to wake up to on a Sunday morning.
I am going to check that out.
Yeah, check it
My
out.
wife tells me I don't make the coffee strong enough, so that might
If she doesn't think this is strong enough, you got to send her to like one of those Turkish coffee places where they have the sand and everything.
drinking the straight beans.
Yeah. When you're done, you smile. You have like sludge all over your teeth.
Yeah.
But this is as close as you can get to that.
Okay.
Without
Great
doing the
recommendation.
whole spiel.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question.
Yeah.
I want to think of a good one because we covered so much ground.
Yeah.
And as a comedian, I'm trying to bring things full circle.
Yeah.
But
Do you want to brainstorm for a sec? Brainstorm for 1 sec because I'm meeting a guy after this. I just want to make sure he's not trying to hit me up.
yeah, you good.
Second.
Okay. Also, like and subscribe to the Chop Shop, BK's Chop Shop, for more conversations like this one. Okay, I got one.
I'll text. Okay.
No rush, though.
Sorry about that.
No, you good. You good.
Yeah. Told this guy I'd meet him at 9. And it's at.
Oh, well, I'll get you out of here in like 30 seconds.
He told me he lives close to where we're meeting up. So.
Okay. Okay, so you bring everything full circle. You won the Jeremy Allen White Lookalike contest. It brought just a lot of attention on you that you were able to then like kind of balance and like extenuate the thing you love, your career, with that. Being able to talk on WGN about mental health and just being able to, like you said, not have a one-to-one conversation, but a one-to-many now, and spread the message. If you had a message now, like a short message, what would that be? Just, it could be about mental health. It could be about anything, but like, what would you tell the world as your message?
I think it would have to go back to what we were just talking about a while ago with purpose and meaning. And I think just for me, I found that to be so helpful. And with people I work with, people I talk to, it's so helpful. If you can find what you, in your life, what you care about, what you want to do, what matters to you. And and just go forward with that. Don't be scared. So many people are scared of taking chances. So many people are scared of taking risks. That's natural. As humans, that's such a natural thing. But to the best of your ability, you got to push yourself. You have to step outside of your comfort zone, and everything's going to be okay. You know, we all stumble. Whether you stay tight in your comfort zone or you step out of it, we're all dealing with challenges.
Yeah.
You know, and the way to grow, the best way to experience life and to feel fulfilled is to do things that you're not comfortable with. And when you do that, I just think you move your life in the right direction. And I don't think people that do that look back and think they regret those decisions. You know? Take action. You got to take action. You know, they did an interesting study a while back, and they were interviewing, it's kind of morbid, but they were interviewing people on their deathbeds, and they were asking them what their biggest regrets were. And almost nobody, actually might have been nobody, regretted something that they did.
Even if they failed, right?
Even if they failed.
Yeah.
Everybody regretted things they didn't do. So you always regret inaction. And we're so wired for inaction because it's scary and it's risky. But the truth is, the best thing you can do is take action, take chances, do whatever it takes to move forward. You're not going to regret that.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to be annoying because I said that was the last question, but you just raised a really good point. I think this is important for people to hear. Speaking of that, like, and there's no wrong answer. Like, in your life, what was the biggest fear you had to overcome and step out of your comfort zone to like better yourself?
Let's see. You know, you talked about public speaking before. I used to be very afraid of public speaking.
Yeah,
I've done a lot of it now,
too.
and so much to the point that I'm really not very nervous about it anymore.
It's amazing.
It's amazing how that happens because you're so ridden with fear when that's something you're scared of. It's like the whole experience is scary, and to think that used to be me. And now, hand me a mic and I can talk in front of a bunch of people. And like, it's not that I don't have any anxiety, but it's definitely not going to stop me from speaking or mess up what I'm saying or anything like that. So I think that's just like a case in point of like, something could be so scary to you, but if you just push yourself to do it, it's just like anything in life. You know, anything that you practice, you're going to get better in. Anything you expose yourself to, you're going to get more comfortable with. There's been a lot of things in my life, though, that I've needed to overcome, as we all have. You know, that's living.
Yeah.
That's living. Nobody
That's living, yeah.
and has it easy. You know,
Well, what a boring life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We all deal with our own things. We all have to figure out how to navigate it, how to overcome it. And if you don't, you just shy away. The problem is if you let fear dictate your life, you shy away from all the great things in life. Everything that makes life worth living.
Yeah.
You know, so you just have to realize fear is in your own head. Emotions are not facts. Thoughts are not facts. That's just your brain processing the information. And once you truly realize that, and that's not an easy task, but once you can truly wrap your head around that, you start to realize, like, oh, it's okay that I'm scared of this. I'm just going to do it anyway. And we're going to see how it goes. And if I screw up, you can't be scared of screwing up. That's the other thing. You can't be scared of it. You know, and then you have to go back to that strategy we were talking about, which is if I screw up, so what? What's going to happen?
Who cares?
Everybody screws up. Most people, if they're not screwing up, it's because they're not even willing to take the risk that you're taking.
Yeah.
You know? And so just do things. And so I've had to overcome a lot. Many people have had to overcome a lot. And the more you prove to yourself that you can step out of your comfort zone, the better off you're going to be.
And that's what I'm going to title the podcast, Just Do Things with Ben Shabad. Yeah, that's a great name. You've been awesome to talk to. This has been so interesting.
You are a great
Thanks for doing it. You're just so much more in depth than the Jeremy Allen White Lookalike contest. And it's cool to get to know you, man. This has been fun. Thank you.